FYP Production.
She fell in love with the bad guy, but she loves my intentions. Nothing feels better than the moment we're sinning, no. Nothing feels better than the moment we're kissing. I'll say I'll love her for forever, in the morning forget her. She was raised under money, growing up she couldn't see the poor. Save my number in her phone under me or more. Look me in my eyes and ask what I need her for. So in this game of life, she just might keep a score. Darkness is clouding my judgment. Marijuana clouds cause the loud is so pungent. But me, I haven't touched a drug since that tray of white. I live my life before the fight like I'm Dana White. The block is hot like that boy band with Nick Lachey. Hold my heart in your hands like a Fabergé. Precious. We was young, dumb, and reckless. Living like the devil couldn't catch us.
And we're back to another episode of Healing Pain Through the Arts presents Youth Speak Out podcast with our live stream episode tonight on This is America. We want to welcome you into our studio on tonight, and we want to thank God for us being here because the devil is a liar. He's always trying to fight us so we can't get this word out. That's why we know that we're on point and we're doing the right thing because he always trying to fight. But you, YSO team, ain't having it tonight. Is that right?
That's right.
We ain't having it. That's right. We ain't having it. So welcome to our episode tonight. It's so much passion, it's so much electricity, it's so much feelings, emotions that's running through our veins, that's running through our minds, our hearts over these past couple of weeks. And we want to thank everyone that is viewing on tonight. That's viewing and on Facebook and our Healing Pain Through the Arts group page. We welcome you in on tonight, and we also want to welcome and everyone that is joining us on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. We want to ask you to like, invite, and share the broadcast on tonight. Engage with our audience, engage with our co-host tonight. We're going to have an awesome time, and we just want you to know that we have a dope show for y'all tonight. We're going to kick it real, we're going to kick it raw, and we're going to kick it uncut tonight. So I hope you're ready to be engaged and to hear what these young people have to say about what's going on in our world today. So with no further ado, we turn it over to the YSO team to take us further.
How's everybody doing tonight? Gang. We're back. So on today's episode, just like my aunt has stated, we're going to dive into a lot of what is going on in our world today, and that's why we titled it This is America. And we also have is our guest in backstage, Auntie?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a special guest today, a good friend of mine. His name is Mark. He wanted to be a part of this conversation, so we're going to bring him in now as we get started. He said he can't hear anything. Can you hear us? Mark, can you hear us?
I can't hear anything.
Uh-oh. Let's try it again. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. I can't hear anybody else.
You can hear me?
Yes.
But you can't hear me.
Can you hear me,
Christian?
I can hear you. I just heard Emmanuel.
Oh, well, that works. He can hear somebody.
Let me just say something right quick to our viewers that's watching. Can you please allow StreamYard to view your name so we can know who's talking? We have a lot of people on tonight, and we want to be able to acknowledge y'all. Thank you for Queen Wanda that's in the building. There's a lot of people that's on. They're saying hello, everyone, but you haven't given StreamYard permission to use your name, so we will not be able to identify you. We really want to know who's talking to us, where you're tuning in from. So can you please, if you're not giving StreamYard permission, please at least put your name in so we can see who you are. Thank you. We appreciate it. Please like, invite, and share the broadcast. Back to the team.
Okay,
Christian,
so
last
sorry. No, I was just saying if he can hear somebody,
Yeah,
then
I
we
still
could
can't hear Christian.
the question. So if
I would
ask the
keep
question,
be able to hear you.
then somebody that he can hear could tell him the question. But I think we were starting with protest, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
starting with protest, and I believe Ashton and Emmanuel, you guys have attended protests, and Ashton, you had some pictures and videos that we're getting ready to view right now.
Yep, you can put them up.
Okay. Not that one.
That's what you do. I love you for it. I'm too doggone old to be out with you and walk 5 and 10 miles a day. So I'm living it right here. I want to know something.
Protesters marched throughout the city of Atlanta on Sunday. One group held camp in front of the state capitol. I spoke over FaceTime with Dr. Jamal Bryant. He pastors New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in South DeKalb County. He gave the benediction during the memorial service for George Floyd in Minneapolis.
It was critical that the church be involved because you've not really seen the church in the center of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I was glad to be a part to say that the Black church is not on the sideline, but on the front line.
Dr. Bryant told me why faith leaders are so important in this very moment.
We're not just hearers of the word, but doers also. The great freedom fighter and abolitionist Frederick Douglass said, I got more prayers answered when I got off my knees.
Sunday afternoon, ministers from area churches of Christ got together to show solidarity and to speak on racial division and injustice. Dr. Bryant says it's critical young protesters continue to let their voices be heard.
Racism is not new to the nation, it's just newly seen. And the greatest weapon we have is our cell phones.
As for how people of faith keep the faith during this time,
100,000 marched in Belgium, 50,000 in Paris, 40,000 in London, and in 40 different cities across the country. It is making a difference. It's making an impact.
So after viewing all of those, I think that I saw, Dr. Jamal alluded to it, but I think I saw somewhere that all 50 states participated in protests, and that it was a lot of countries that participated in protests. We even got the Amish out of their hiding. So it was a very, very powerful movement. But I want to pose this question to y'all. Do you think that the protests are working, and are they going to help us accomplish the goal that we ultimately want to accomplish?
Okay, Mark, did you hear Christian at all, or you still can't hear him?
I heard him that time. Yeah, I heard him.
Okay, cool.
Praise Jesus.
I kind of got something to I can answer. The first part was
Praying.
work. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I do think they work, but I don't think they're gonna be what ultimately like accomplishes our goal. For the main reason that a lot of these companies and like a lot of the stuff that's happening is happening because of embarrassment and not really out of genuine
Care.
thought. Yeah, and change. Like they painted a whole 3 blocks Black Lives Matter. It's something flashy, you know what I'm saying? It's it's like one of those
A parent
where
gives their kid something like says, "Here, just be quiet."
Right, for the moment. And it's like, I do believe that they work because they want to stop the protests, of course. Because it just I personally have not been out there, so I don't know how frequent police brutality against people during protests are, because I do know that just like the media acts one way, if you have only one source of information for everything, you're going to only think one way. So I've had to kind of step away from like Twitter and stuff like that and Instagram, just because a lot of people don't have well thought out opinions about what's going on. They are regurgitating what they've heard somebody else say, and not really looking into anything on their own. So that's how I feel.
That was a good point.
I have been to protests. I've been to 2 now. I was at the first protest that Atlanta had at all, like 2 Fridays ago. And that was like right after Minneapolis really like was going crazy that weekend, and then that week everybody was digesting it. And then I went to one this past Sunday. Both of them in the city of Atlanta. To answer the question very directly, do I think protests work? Yes, but I think protests do not work in isolation. And I don't think currently the movement is moving in isolation. I think that a lot of the other things that need to happen are happening. But protests are the ones that get the most attention. 1, because they amass the most amount of people at once. And then 2, because a lot of protests that we've seen have gone to rioting and looting. And so that's going to get media attention, and the news is going to, try and flip that one way. And then you have social media highlighting it in another way. And depending on where you get your information from, or, depends on how you view. Well, it doesn't depend on how you view those things, but it depends on how you're directly seeing it. And then you can build your opinion from there. But like I said, I don't think protest works in isolation. I think if we only protested, they would just wait out the protests. They'd be like, eventually, at some point, people are going to either A, get tired of protesting, and even if we protested every day for the rest of the year in all 50 states, legislators don't have to do anything if that's all we're doing. But we're doing other things. We're petitioning. Just 2 days ago, June 9th was the primary day for voting in Georgia. I've seen, there's people voting. And not only that, but also outside of just peaceful protesting, there has been rioting and looting, which is a different tactic that, you can argue how you feel about it or whatever. But me personally, I'm not like someone who says like, I'm not a champion of them, but I do not condemn them because they work. The fact of the matter is, in my opinion, the way you tackling racism, a lot of people look at from one lens, right? And they look at it from the lens of trying to like remove racism from people's hearts, like
impossible.
Yeah, to change people's hearts, right? And to do that requires education, it requires listening to each other, candid and open conversation. It requires us remolding the way that we teach history. It requires so many things, but all of those things are grounded in peaceful pursuits. And when people talk about it from that perspective, they're like, you have to remain peaceful to reach that goal. The problem is we're not trying to do away with racism. We're trying to remove racism from the systemic oppression that this country is built on. That's about not changing people and changing their hearts, but about changing legislation. And unfortunately, changing legislation does not require someone's affected heart. It requires you to mess some stuff up. It requires to either affect people's pockets, affect people's well-being and livelihood. It requires bloodshed sometimes, and historically speaking, it's always required bloodshed to a grand scale. And not like saying that all of those things must happen, right? Not saying I want all of those things to happen. I'm saying that for long-term change and like us to really do what the goal is, which is really take the system and do away with it and make a new system. Because our system is not broken. Our system works exactly the way it was intended to work from creation, to destroy black people and uplift white people, and to make livelihood best for those that are in control, the oppressors. So for us to take the system, do away with it, and build a new system, all of those things will have to happen. And we're seeing those things happen. We're seeing the bloodshed on both sides, mainly on the side of protesters, because the police are the ones with all the weapons. We're seeing, the voting. We're seeing the aspect of commerce with the burning down and the destruction of property and the this, that, and the third. Now we're talking about buying black a lot more often and highlighting all of these companies that we're going to boycott or not buy from and X, Y, Z. So we're hitting all of the points. And I mean, we're seeing progress very directly in the George Floyd case. All 4 officers were arrested. One of them has bonded out, but they are brought up on charges. And Derek, the one that was the one who primarily had his knee on him, we got that charge moved up to 2nd degree. The FBI has opened an investigation on Breonna Taylor's murder, and Ahmaud Arbery's the 2 murderers and the man who recorded the video are all going to face trial. So we're seeing progress made in all 3 of those cases that are the 3 cases that have really championed this. But like I said, protesting doesn't work alone. It requires all of these other things that I think we're doing right now currently.
I agree. I think it's working. I went the first day they had the protest too, and I just went on Sunday. And the main difference I've observed so far in Atlanta, at least, is that when I went on Sunday, there were a lot less police officers. The National Guard wasn't there like they were last weekend. And so I think that they're kind of like giving up on having the police out there to try to control people because it's mainly been peaceful. I haven't seen anything crazy happen, at least here. And I think I've been thinking that I feel like if it wasn't for Corona going on, I don't think this many people would be protesting. Because I don't think people are getting up and taking off of work every day to go downtown to protest. I don't think they would be giving up their leisurely activities to go protest. But people, most of us don't really have that much to do. And we're seeing all of this injustice constantly in front of our face because we're at home all day. So people are actually advocating for change. And I feel like it kind of changed my perspective on the past few months, because I'm thinking, like, what if this was the reason that all this Corona stuff happened? Like, this is why, God was just telling everybody to stay home. And I think it's good. I think that my first experience with seeing, somebody be killed on a major platform, like seeing it in the media, was Trayvon Martin. And I was young, so I don't remember people protesting, but I do remember being in high school when the Ferguson protesting happened. And I still only remember that being a day or two. But now it's been since the last week of May. Every single day, people are out there protesting constantly, and it's not dying down. It's still waves of people. And I think my only concern now is that I question the companies that are speaking out, because I don't know if they're doing it just so that they can keep their money coming in, or if they actually do support Black people and the value of our lives. So I think that we have to continue hitting them where it hurts the most, which is their money. The economy is the only thing that's going to make them change. When they were doing the Montgomery bus boycotts, they didn't ride the bus for an entire year, and they killed their pockets, and that's how they got what they wanted out of it. And I think that that's what we have to keep doing if we really want to see any change come out of it.
Mark, you have anything to add before I go on my little tangent?
What the heck?
Yeah, I think that was a very great point for me to piggyback off of, because I believe it works. I just believe we have to be willing to go through the process. I believe a lot of times, like, this is not a trend, just because something happened. It's not something we just, it's not a hashtag. It's not just, a week-long thing. Like, Black people are losing their lives to this. So we have to be willing to go the long run. And I also believe you do it too economically. So it's just like, okay, we got to support more Black-owned businesses. That's why, kind of like Emmanuel said, like, I'm not for looting, but I can understand it. But don't hurt the Black-owned businesses, because now you're hurting your own people. But you got to be willing to put back into your own economy. I've been seeing a lot of great points about, Black athletes attending more HBCUs. I'm all for that. I understand the HBCUs might not have the funding that the bigger universities has, as like the Duke or Kentucky. But imagine if you have a LeBron James and he went to Howard, or imagine if like our Carmelo went to Morehouse. You're talking about generating all these different streams of income into this university. So I believe the more we could impact our own lives and put the money back into our community, that's when you really send a notice like, oh, they're serious. They're not just talking. They're not just week-long protests. No, they're willing to go the long distance and they're willing to hurt us economically.
Absolutely.
I agree with everything that everybody said. You guys alluded to a lot of good points, and to answer my own question, I do believe that we're seeing some improvements in the right direction. Definitely taking the steps to hurt their pockets, because I think that's the only thing that white people care about is their money.
And other white people.
And then pointing out what who said it? Was it Ashton? Somebody said it, but the company speaking out what we don't really know if it's genuine or not, like if they're just doing it to save face. So I believe, from like, just to play devil's advocate, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. So it's I think we take it with a grain of salt, because it's like, do we believe you? I don't know. So, but my next question is, I want to know, Ashton brought up Trayvon Martin. I remember that vividly because I sat and watched it with my family, and I just, as a black man, I felt I was hurt not getting that guilty conviction, because I feel like our lives didn't matter, like we were expendable. And then the Mike Brown thing happened. But I wanted to know, or what do you guys think, like what made, I know Ashton alluded to the coronavirus and everybody being at home, so they really didn't have anything to do. And then we're seeing all of this happen in front of our faces, like it's on social media. So I want to know what made George Floyd's murder the last straw for everybody to just say, forget it. We're not going to have any more of this.
For me, I think it was like a combination of all the frustration that people have been having in the past few months, because we're already kind of in a state of unrest, being unsure of everything that's happening in life already. Everybody is already fed up. And then you see someone, we're not even supposed to be outside, but he went outside to do a simple everyday task. And we watch a 9-minute long video of him getting killed. And it's like, how do you not be angry at that? There was nothing that provoked it to get to that point. And if everybody is already questioning, like, how long am I going to be living until I get corona? And then you just see somebody get killed for no reason. It fuels up your anger. You're like, we're just trying to survive. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And a man can't go cash a check. Mm-hmm. He gets questioned for a $20 bill. And then you see all of these people around watching him die, the 4 other police officers watching him, doing nothing. I don't think there's any way that you can sit here and justify not being upset about that. You can't just say that that's normal life. You can't just say, oh, he deserved it. Oh, he did whatever. There's no reasoning for that. It was 9 whole minutes of him saying, I can't breathe, and begging for his mom, and somebody is literally crushing his neck and his chest. You can't do nothing about that. You have to act. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, I feel similarly. Oh, did I interrupt somebody?
No, I was looking to see if he was about to talk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I feel like like you said, George Floyd's murder was the last straw, and I think that it was a combination of factors. Like Ashton talked about, for one, we're all at home. A lot of people are either not at work or working remotely, or just whatever the situation is. Like, the pandemic has shifted our entire existence, and we were already talking about the fact that once we get past this, and maybe the second wave hits, whatever, once we get past it, we'll never go back to life as it was. We were already talking about that with just the pandemic. But now with this hitting, like, we can't go back to life as it was, and I just think that was a major factor. But I also think, like, alluding to a comment that one of our viewers made, it was the matter of the murder. We are in a situation now where we're all at home and we're all on our phones or our laptops more than we were before because of the pandemic. And now you run into a video that is 9 minutes in length, 10 minutes in length, of a man being remorselessly and just graphically murdered with no care. The blank expression on the officer's face while he just knees his life away. And then the other officer, Officer Chow, or however you pronounce his name, being like, defensive of his partner and aggressive towards all the people. And I think that, the fact that we get to see it, another murder that we get to see, but I think part of it is the fact that, like, it happened so long and so gruesomely, and that it wasn't just that he was shot, like the fact that this was, it felt so, like
intentional.
carnal. Yeah. It was such a carnal murder, it was just person to person. And I think that mixed with, like she said, the anger. I mean, the country's been in a state of unrest, and the world's been in a state of unrest for the past 6 to 8 months. Because when you talk about coronavirus, when you talk about it in Wuhan, you're talking about all the way back really to like last August, but really hitting heavy, and things coming out like October, November. We've been on basically shut down since March. I know March is when I stopped going to school. Like, there's already anger. There's already this unrest. There's already this feeling of hopelessness throughout the entire nation and throughout the world. And, coronavirus almost took our attention. Coronavirus almost put us on a playing field where everybody kind of felt like we, as the human race, were fighting this common goal. They talk about the thing that'll end racism is if the aliens come. We'll have to beat these first, And it kind of felt like coronavirus was that type of thing. And then all of a sudden you hear about Ahmaud Arbery, how that went months and nothing. And then you hear about Breonna Taylor. Then you hear about Sean Reed. You hear about all these things, but then you watch George Floyd in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a tipping point. Like, that is, unfortunately, like, that was a perfect storm for us to be where we are right now and the movement to go into the place where it is.
So we have a lot of comments going on. I'm just going to jump in for a second.
Question. I was going to get to that next. I was just going to let Mark or Andrew finish before we got into Hannah's question, because I was going to get to that next.
That's a good question, Hannah.
Yeah, it was.
I just think honestly, I think like that old saying from our parents and grandparents, I think just black people are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And it's just like, sometimes it's just like, how much are we going to lie? How much are you just going to keep just standing by and watching? And I know for me personally, like, I just feel like, for me, I fit the mold of like, what I'm saying, of a George Floyd. Like, I'm 6'1", 250. That could easily be me. I look at like, if I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time, am I going to be a hashtag? Because I may have a fake $20 bill and not know it. I've had situations like that personally, where somebody gave me some money and I thought it was real, it looked real, and then somebody told me at the store that it was fake. And just seeing how like this man got killed for a fake $20 bill that he probably didn't know was real, it's just like, I'm sick and tired of seeing it. I'm sick and tired of feeling like when I step out of the house, I have to really pray to God that I just get back home safely. I feel like black people shouldn't have to feel like if they pass a police officer, the heart shouldn't drop to their stomach, and they shouldn't have to look and check through the mirror to make sure that the officer is not busting a U-turn or not pulling out of to wherever they were parked at. It's a legit fear. It's not something that people just talk about. Like, I know me personally, like, when I'm on the highway, I try to make sure that I don't go above 5 miles an hour. I try to make sure when I'm in certain areas that if I see them, I don't even try to give them a reason to pull me over. And if I do get pulled over, it's just like, I'm literally afraid of like what could go wrong, instead of just thinking I'll get my ticket and go about my day. No, I'm literally just praying to God that like nothing goes left and I can just make it home and pay this ticket. And I just think people are tired of literally just being sick and tired. And like Emmanuel said, this was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely agree with everybody. The only thing I really can add, as far as me personally, I did not watch the video for one reason and one reason only. I mean, I watched the video of Alton Sterling, and I've watched plenty of videos before. I don't know if any of you all remember, but I remember a man named Terrence Crutcher, who we saw the aerial view of him walking with his hands literally up and just getting shot. And I've seen plenty of those throughout my life. And a long time ago, I kind of told myself I'm personally became tired of seeing it, because it's one thing to hear about it, but it's another thing to see it. And to watch somebody die on camera at the hand of the very people who are sworn to protect us. I think that really caused everybody to go crazy, because good cops stop bad cops. Like, that's what's supposed to happen. Am I right? Mm-hmm. They're not supposed to choose their brotherhood over the life of a man that they're supposed to be protecting. I just don't see how you can watch, because if it was a regular person just on another person's neck, it would still be bad. It would still be wrong, but it wouldn't be, another situation as far as obviously he wanted to kill him. Like, I just saw from the pictures, the look in his face, he didn't care. He obviously didn't care. And pictures from his partner, from what I've seen, he just kind of, he knows in his face, I see that he knows what's happening is wrong, but he's not going to stop it because he's got whatever going on himself, because he has the badge on. And it's really just, it's history being brought to light. I don't think anybody could have predicted how often it happens across the nation if we had no cell phones. Even back in the day, we think about how often it probably happened from city to city, similar circumstances, and you don't hear about it because news from Kentucky ain't going to end up in California, because who cares about what's happening in Kentucky, So it's like, I feel like the widespread, how fast things can travel through the air now. It's ridiculous. Like, literal, whatever it is, our phones send signals to each other. They travel like that. And it's like, I see people doing stuff in Germany on my timeline. Like, I don't know anybody in Germany, but somehow it makes its way to the States, if that makes sense. So I feel like that aspect of it, because you can't just watch that and be okay with it. And yeah.
So the thing that really frustrates me about this situation is that we have surveillance footage, and we have that video that I didn't watch the whole video. I couldn't. I watched Ahmaud Arbery's death by accident because I didn't know what it was. But the thing that really frustrated me is that instead of issuing an apology right away, the Minneapolis Police Department tried to say that he resisted arrest. And then they tried to say that he died at the hospital, when we can clearly see the man was lifeless when they put him on the stretcher. So that like the corruption and the injustice that Black people face on the daily from the people that are sworn to protect us is really what frustrates me, and is really what angers me. And I don't really trust the police, to be completely honest, because I think Andrew alluded to it. I don't know if we were talking about family, but they're the biggest gang in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, if you really think about it, they're the biggest gang in the world. And it leads me to the question that Hannah posed. She said, how do we feel about people wanting to dismantle the police department? I guess I'll start out. Dismantling it, I don't know. But defunding it, I'm all for it. Take away. Why does the New York Police Department have a $6 billion budget?
What?
And that's the most corrupt police department in the world. I promise.
Actually, I saw a tweet that said it might be more towards 11 billion. Like, do you know it's harder to become? I think it's harder to become. Well, I saw a tweet that said it's harder to become something like a regular day job than it is to become a police officer.
A barber or a hairstylist?
Barber.
Need more hours of training.
There's less training hours.
There's less training hours to become a become a police officer than it is
to become a barber.
I trust my barber more than I trust the cops, to be completely honest with you. Okay. So dismantling them, I don't know, because I mean,
if we're being honest,
we need law and order, but defunding them, I'm all for it. Go ahead, Andrew.
If we're being honest, the difference between us and third world countries around the world is the fact that we're able to enforce the laws that we write. Even though they're enforced in a very stupid way. People fear the police because the prison system here is definitely one that if you get caught up in it, it's very hard to get out of it.
Yep.
So, you know, to live here, honestly, there's a way of life that you know that you shouldn't do certain things. You know that you shouldn't try to rob a bank because investigators will definitely come and find you. Like, I don't care. You have to have a lot of resources in order to get away with taking a lot of money. And that's a difference between us and a lot of countries. Like, and then a lot of things as far as people will say, you know, the gun violence, like if we, you know, take away guns and stuff like that, at this point it's too late. There's more guns per capita than there is people that can read in America, at least in the South. That's not an actual fact. I'm just saying.
I was about to say. That's not good.
But for them to take England, for instance, their police actually do not have guns, and they still beat black people up. Like it's not, and then they still have an issue with people like stabbing each other. So like, you know, people are gonna find a way. But at the end of the day, the difference, dismantling, no, because we do need something to uphold the laws. Otherwise, it would be anarchy. And you know, that's one thing that that's essentially what martial law is. Martial law is there's no police force; it's the army that just occupies space, and you know they walk around in your town. But as far as, you know, keeping order, they don't really do that. So whatever goes on, and you don't want that life. That's not a good life for especially for people here, because it seems like we got the most crazy people in the world for whatever reason. Y'all live in Florida. But yeah, defunding them would probably help. Me personally, I just feel like you just gotta. I don't know how deep it is. Like, you just gotta cut the head off the snake, find the head, cut him off, and start replacing. And, you know, hopefully the trickle effect works, but defunding them, it seems like it won't even, because at the moment we don't control where our tax dollars go, so that's not up to us anyway. It would take a lot to change, like, you know, legislation as far as, you know, that type of stuff. But yeah.
Okay. I agree. I don't think that we should dismantle it, because my vision, if the police department as a whole gets dismantled, is that I'm gonna just be seeing a whole bunch of other white people outside with guns anyway. So it might as well be somebody that's trained to do it. So I feel like it doesn't need to be dismantled. Stop. But it just the education needs to be there. There's no reason that I should be controlled by somebody who only had to go to training for 8 weeks. I have a 4-year college degree.
Hello.
Oh, girl.
No. I don't think that makes any sense. I think that if paralegals and lawyers and all of them have to go to school for 4+ years to get their degree and get into their field, and the police should have to do the same thing. Somebody who was fresh out of high school should not be able to use a gun against a civilian. It doesn't make sense. So I just think they need more education because they fear for their life. I just think they need more education. I don't think we should dismantle them as a whole, because there are situations where you're going to need a police officer. You're going to need somebody to help you. So I think they should be there, but they need to work harder for the job that they want. If they want it that bad, then they'll go to school for it. If not, they can do something else.
Hello.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, because I believe that's my two things. I believe the police officers, the police department needs to be defunded, and I believe that qualifications to become a police officer needs to go up. Like she said, you know, going to school, going to an academy for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you get a full gun that can take somebody's life, versus somebody that has to go to school for 4 to 6 years to study law, understand it, and then you probably got to start at the bottom of the totem pole just to become a lawyer, versus somebody that's after 8 weeks, you're in the car riding around.
I believe
it just doesn't make sense to me in my head. And also, too, I really think the funding of police needs to happen, too, especially when you look at, like, these public schools who receive little to no funding. You know, I look at, like, you know, me personally, like, I work at a high school in DeKalb County. It's one of the oldest high schools in DeKalb County. Like, they have one gym, you know, no home football stadium, just different things like that. It's just, but like Chris alluded to, you're talking about some police officers in New York, their budget is up to $11 billion. 6 to 11 billion, that's just ridiculous. Like, for what? I just don't see the necessary means behind it when I go to some of these schools, our local schools, and just see the education system and see how bad it is failing. And that's why you got some people that's just like, you know what, I might as well go be a police officer for 8 weeks versus going to college for 4 years and being in debt $50,000. So it's just like, I get it, it makes sense, but it's just the qualifications to become one just don't sit right with me at all.
They don't match up.
Nope. Yeah. I'm alone because I guess in this regard, my feelings and thoughts are a bit radical. I do believe that the police need to be dismantled. Now, when I say that, a lot of people are like, well, then who's gonna like handle the criminals? And that, like, let me explain what I mean. The police department, first of all, I'm also for defunding. I also believe the qualifications need to be increased and the time of training needs to be expanded. Absolutely. But when I say, and what most people are saying when they're talking about dismantling the police department, is changing the very concept of policing in America. The police department, right, like policing started when slavery ended and the slave patrol needed like a new rebranding. So they rebranded it to cops and they built jails because rather than now having all of the black people on plantations, we need another way to destroy the black people. So we created this organization that can, at free will, kill and detain and imprison and destroy the lives of black people. Now, with that being said, people are like, oh, well, they're not doing exactly that. They basically are doing exactly that. They're just doing it in a newer, cooler, fresh way. They just rebrand every couple of decades. Real talk. But even beyond just like the origin and like where it started, right? Because like a lot of things can start from one place and depending on the evolutions they go through, they can be in another place, right? Beyond just the origin of policing, the concept, the very like thought and image and concept that people have of what cops do is so far from what cops do. But the fact of the matter is the police have too many responsibilities. If I or someone I know, right, who has a severe, like severe asthma, right? Like terrible asthma, has a very severe asthma attack. The only number I know to call is the number for the cops. The cops are not trained to deal with that. I know cops. They're not trained to deal with, they're not trained to deal with a myriad of things. They're not trained to deal with people with mental health issues or really like communities in general. Cops' jobs, right, in theory, are to punish, to be the first step in punishing criminals, right? And people relate policing and stricter policing and stricter criminal law to like a reduction in crime. Never in history has policing being more intense led to crime actually dropping. What it does is it leads to the illusion that crime is dropping because you just arrest more people. And now everyone thinks all the criminals are behind the doors in the jail. That's not how crime works. I don't know why people think crime works that way, but it's not. Crime, majority of crime at least, is a product of socioeconomic situations, right? Mm-hmm. Even majority of violent crimes are the product of socioeconomic situations. So absolutely, I believe that we need to defund the police and take that funding and put it into the communities, especially our Black and brown communities, especially in the area of education. Not just funding education, not just taking the funds from the police departments and putting it in education, but changing the way that we teach education, especially when it comes to history in America. But then I also think we need to take the way that the police operate and work in America and change it. You look at majority of the nations that have actual low crime rates, meaning they have low people incarcerated, because nobody has more people incarcerated per capita than us, and they deal with very low amounts of violent crime on the streets. It's because A, it's educate their people, B, they fund their communities, and C, the police's job is not to go around showing up with a gun drawn for every single minor discrepancy or major discrepancy that occurs. That is not like, no person who gets trained for 6 to 8 weeks can then handle that. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of times when we look at the police, we look at the police as the first line of order, in the first line of justice. And that is like the image that the police are supposed to have. And that's the like ideal role for police. The fact of the matter is, in most places, that is not what the police serve as. The police do not become the first line of order or the first line of justice. The police become a agent or an organization built to control. That's it. And basically living in a society where the first line of justice is a organization that's built to control, and for certain communities, ergo us Black people, to harm and destroy, is a dystopia. Like that's not justice or like some wonderful democratic nation that we believe that and claim that we live in. That's like a fascist government. Like let's call that what it is. So when most people are saying dismantle the police, they're not saying police and the job of cops should not exist. Because clearly, if you take away cops as a whole, there will be a degree and level of anarchy, like Andrew talked about. But when it comes to what the police do, the way that they operate, the funding that they get, the requirements it is to be a police and all of that, all of that has to change. And I think one of the biggest things that needs to go into those requirements is background checks. Because we're looking at a lot of these kids, right? These like high school students that are getting exposed for these racial and racist comments and biases right now happening, and people are exposing them on Twitter, and everybody's like, they're in high school, you're ruining their lives. But you're seeing these people are going and wanting to be cops, they wanting to be doctors, they wanting to be lawyers, they wanting to be nurses, and they're going into these fields with these preconceived biases and these racial stereotypes and sometimes just full-blown racism and white supremacy beliefs, and that is affecting us in our communities every single day. It's the reason why Black women have the highest mortality rate when it comes to pregnancy, and the reason why so many doctors and nurses treat Black people as if we're supposed to have a higher tolerance for pain because of all the crap that we've been through, and then we get treated differently. So they won't prescribe us medicine because of the crack epidemic, and everyone think that we are trained and genetically engineered to be addicts. So now we don't get prescription diseases. But if you look at the prescription drugs for these issues, but if you look at the opioid crisis, who is it affecting most? White kids. So, you know what I mean? These things need to happen. We need background checks. We need severe mental evaluations. We need more training. We need defunding. We need all these things. So yes, I'm a bit more revolutionary or radical in the sense.
It's all right.
I am with
Bring that fire.
I am with dismantling the police, but I'm not saying that policing doesn't need to happen. But I am saying that we need to change the way they operate. And that's just the first part, because the criminal justice system as a whole needs to change. That goes into not just policing, but investigation. That goes into law, that goes into these judges. And of course, that goes into the prison system. So all of it needs to be taken from the roots and destroyed, because the roots are rotten. And we keep trying to cut off branches of the tree, and we keep trying to take off a few leaves and remove the bad apples. These cops ain't bad apples. They the result of these poisonous roots that this trees in this poisonous land that these trees are being built in. So of course, you know, we're gonna have these results. So I think the whole thing need to be uprooted, and I think the system itself needs to be put on trial like they did in South Africa with the end of apartheid. And we need to try and convict the system, and we need probably the help of the United Nations and other international organizations to do that. And then we need to build up something new. That's just my opinion. I'm sorry.
Have mercy. Come on through here. Come on, kick it raw, y'all. Tell the truth.
Set the waters.
That was it.
You definitely, you know, just spit right now, for real. And you know, I'm sure everybody here agrees with you. I definitely agree with you. When I was saying, you know, I didn't want it to sound like I'm a fan of the police, because I'm not. If something was to happen within our household, I guarantee you, I'm not calling the police. Whoever it is, I got it messed up. Yeah, that's just how. This is kind of how it goes.
But let's be real, though. Let's be real. I know I'm in the cut, but let's be real. If something really is going on, at some point you do have to involve the police.
It depends.
We'll call them after
at what
we
point in my life
on the degree of the situation.
That's true.
I'm gonna be.
I'm gonna be honest.
My fault.
I'm gonna be honest. Absolutely, like what you're saying is correct. At some point, right, in certain situations, especially violent situations, you are supposed to call the police. But I, as a black man, am very scared. I've seen too many times black people call the police and the police show up and it's like, oh, you're the criminal, and start letting off rounds, beating them up, or putting them in handcuffs. It's so high risk for black people to be in the same space as police, even when we are the ones inviting and calling and meeting them. The risk is so high that I just be like, should I just let this man that I clearly hear downstairs rummaging through my rooms rob my house? Because you know what I mean? I got a warranty on that toaster. You know what I mean? There's no warranty on my life. Like, you really got to contemplate that as a black person.
Which is not something you should ever have to contemplate in life. You shouldn't have to.
Bro, the literal thought is, if I do this, I might die. Like that's not a problem. That is the problem. But there are definitely
calling them is the last resort
that are like private investigation, and I intend to find a black one and use them because look, I'm not gonna lie, Auntie. I have these same, like, there's plenty of things that I've had a lot of, I don't want to say run-ins with the police, but I've had a lot of encounters with the police around this small area growing up, and they kind of all fit the same description to me.
Well, we have to put a disclaimer out there. We know that all police are not bad. We know that all police are not corrupt. We know that all police personnel are not. I know police officers that are putting their lives on the line every day when they go out there. They have the heart of the people. They are trying to do the right thing. But the thing is that we also need re-education of the police. And like you all were saying, that you can get it's easier to get a job on the police than your 4 years in college. But that issue needs to be dealt with, because the two cops that were the prominent ones, and then the other 4 added, the 6 cops that pulled that Tanaya Pilgrim and Messiah Young out of that car. That's the Morehouse and the Spelman students. They had just taken some sensitivity training.
What?
Yes.
Yeah, they were literally just taking it. One had completed it like a few days before. The other one was a week before.
And most of the time, that's how it goes. It's not.
And they're black cops.
They've done something like that.
Yep.
That's why they got 5
black and 1 white. God help us.
Like, because they know. Police know. Everybody knows who the person is who does their job poorly at their job. Everybody knows that.
You know exactly what it
is.
So true.
That's why I ain't never been a fan of, we got to get more black cops.
No, because some of them do the same thing.
They worse.
I'm gonna tell you, like Pastor Kurt said, you have to change the heart of the people. That's the issue. Those that are out there, because all of that racism is underlined with sin, and you have to change the heart of the person, because if you take that person and take them off the police force and you put them, they end up in Home Depot, or they end up in Target as a security guard or somewhere, the folks in there are gonna have to deal with that same evil spirit. It's about changing the heart, and only God can change a man's heart through the work that we do, through prayer, through all of the things that Emmanuel and you guys are talking about that are important, that the protesting, all of these things have their place. But the issue is really, really serious, because it's too many people losing their lives that we are actually seeing. And somebody put up a video that someone else lost their life since George Floyd.
29.
Most people have.
29 people.
Yes.
29.
Yeah. And protesters.
But I mean, like in that same fashion, with their neck being on the ground with him.
Well, I don't know if it's 29 people exactly who have died like that, but I know 29 people have died at the hands of police.
It's like we're protesting for police brutality
to end,
just for the police to still brutalize the people that are protesting.
Shooting people in the eyes with rubber bullets.
Yo, them rubber bullets.
So all I'm gonna say, like,
they're a lot bigger than I thought they were.
They're huge.
Yeah, they're huge.
They're huge.
Like, why are they?
Rubber bullets different.
They're not even rubber.
So Brenda said,
with a rubber cap on it.
Brenda's agreeing you have to change the heart. Brenda Jordan Simmons said you have to change the heart. Doris is saying sometimes the power behind the uniform goes to their head. They are not above the law. They're not above the law.
Most cops have been cocky for their entire lives, and that's why they became a cop in the first place.
And it's
I mean,
they
you
want
look at the face of that guy when he was laying on George Floyd. He was like, somebody had put on Instagram a comment, like he was like, "Who gonna check me, boo?" That was his face was like he was enjoying that.
That's the problem. If the rest of the cops surrounding him were quote unquote good, then they would have said something.
Come on, Ashton.
I don't care what
Come on, Ashton.
Crazy. I'm gonna check them. You check your friends, you check your partners, you check whoever is around you because you know what's right and you know what's wrong.
Regardless,
they didn't say a word.
All I'm gonna say is we don't have a song called "F the Firemen," so if the police, you know,
because the fire department doing their job and they going home.
So, segue, talking about the violence. Auntie, are you gonna put up this Louis Farrakhan video or?
Yep.
All right, and then we'll get into it.
And as long as our people think the way they think, we will never be able to do what we as a people should do to correct our condition.
Over here, please.
Excuse me, I was brought up in, quote, Bedford-Stuyvesant in my town. But I would like to say what scares us is I think we hear violence.
Yes. The young lady said she's afraid of violence. And isn't it sad that we who have been the victims of so much violence, now whites fear violence from us? We do not have a history of killing white people. White people have a history of killing us. See? And what you fear, may I say this, sir? What you fear, and it's a deep guilt thing, that white folks suffer. You are afraid that if we ever come to power, we will do to you and your fathers what you and your people have done to us. And I think you are judging us by the state of your own mind, and that is not necessarily the mind of black people.
Wow.
And he said that in 1990 on the Donahue Show. 1990.
Still very relevant.
Still relevant.
So
aged so well.
So well. So everybody said it, and I agree. I may not necessarily agree with the looting, but I don't condemn them because
I don't either. People mad.
At the very least, you're gonna feel me. Like, I'm gonna burn this Target, I'm gonna burn this police station, and you gonna feel me. Like, arrest that man, because even after that happened, it still took them a couple of days. It still took us a couple of days to get an arrest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean,
and that was, they targeted that specific target though.
Yeah, because they weren't giving milk to the protesters who were being tear gassed. So
like, it was deeper than that.
Like, you kind of brought it on yourself. So I'm not.
Had to do with some like legislation a few years ago that had to do with cleaning up the downtown Minneapolis. That had to do with the police department, like directly. So that they targeted that one specifically because of that.
Deep times.
So, but and then I saw a post with this white lady holding the poster saying if something about if we didn't.
If it happened to her son, she would burn it down too.
Right, that one. So
yeah, I started to give that one too. Yeah, when it hits home, when it becomes real to you.
But to that point, a lot of white people in rebuttal will say that the police kill white people too. And my thing is, so why weren't you protesting? If you felt strongly about it, then why weren't you already out there in the first place?
Well, I'll tell you why. I can answer that. Because I watched the video the other day. The comedian Andrew Schultz made a video, and he was like talking to white people as a white person, and he said something that we've always known, but it just hit me when he was saying it. Like, oh yeah, white people trust the police unequivocally. So if a white person is killed by the cops to white people, that white person clearly must have deserved to be killed. White people truly believe the police are a pair of citizen that is above other white people love and trust the police, and they should, because the police were made for them. But white people love and trust the police so much and so blindly and unequivocally that whatever the police do must be the law, must be right. And anytime they step into any bounds that seems like it could be encroaching upon someone's civil right, that person must not have deserved that civil right. And that's why you can say, well, they kill white people too. Well, then why aren't you upset? Because that's what they're supposed. That's not what they're supposed to do.
That's facts.
And then there's actual factual statistics that will support the fact that black people are actually killed more by cops than white people are. Unarmed black people.
You don't even need to get the statistics on that one.
Way higher frequency.
Then
but one of the things that they have to teach too is how to de-escalate situations, because a lot of situations, like I saw a video yesterday of 2 young black teenagers walking. They weren't doing anything, they were walking, and the cops accosted them and put them on the ground, had his arm around the young man's neck. And first they handcuffed one, and before you know it, another one was handcuffed. And it's like, but who is going to de-escalate the situation? You know, we got to be able to, our goal of equality in our country, yes, and the things be able to accomplish so many other things that we've been held down from, but we want to be able to have people who don't see us as a threat.
Yeah. We really got to teach them not to escalate the situation at all, because it'd be their fault every single time.
That's what the training literally is. Like, the training is to escalate situations. Honestly, it's not like, and it's not to handle them and de-escalate them. It's to do force with force.
Yeah.
And, you know, do what it is. And then you got to remember the types of personalities of these people. You kind of talked about it earlier. It's people with bad social skills. As kids, probably were picked on. I saw there's a character, I think, in The Wire that is like one of the cops. They go through like his character art, and he was like that. He was like an awkward kid. He didn't really have many friends, and you know, a lot of those kids either go to the army because they want to kill people, or become police because they want to kill people. And it's not like a thing that's not known. Like, even I know Herschel Walker said before he went to choosing football, he said he was gonna go to the army because he wanted to kill somebody, just because his whole life he was bullied. Granted, that is a black man, and I understand, you know what I'm saying, but he was bullied his whole life. So imagine people, you know, white people treat white people horribly if they don't like them. You would. The way they look at us is bad, but if a rich white person saw a poor white person, it would be the same treatment. And almost kind of,
it's like Game of Thrones,
right? And you know, it's that mentality. You know, the one thing Emmanuel, his literal whole thing is literally we have to change the roots, because the 13th Amendment doesn't say that slavery is over. It says it's illegal unless
abolished.
Convicted of crime, and not even a felony. Like, it's not a felony. You're convicted of a crime. You're convicted of jaywalking.
You're a slave.
You're a slave, sir. And there's more black men incarcerated now than there was working in the plantations back in the day.
That's crazy to think about,
ain't it?
That's crazy to think about.
And it's just like he said, it's not gone. It's just different. They changed form.
They I forgot what I was going to say.
They put their mask on.
No, I think to piggyback off you real quick, but like he made a good point. But this is my thing. Like, I get that that the root is bad, and one of my favorite quotes is from Malcolm X. Like, yeah, the root is bad, but white folks and cops and racism, they don't even acknowledge that it's a problem. Like, Malcolm X quote says, you know, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and you pull it out 6 inches, no progress is being made. If you pull it out 3 inches, there's still no progress being made. You got to pull the knife out all the way to actually heal the wound. White folks don't even admit that the knife is there, and that's the problem. That's where it starts. So we could say it's bad roots, but until they actually admit the root is bad and it's actually a problem, it ain't really gonna matter. And that's the frustrating part. Because you won't even acknowledge you got white folks who literally say, I don't see color. And it's just like,
I want you to
really
see me.
sit there,
Like, how you just gonna ignore somebody?
like
Like that doesn't even make sense. You sound dumb.
Exactly.
that's the
I'm a whole
that's
black
just the
man.
frustration.
So you don't see color. So what am I, gray?
That's
Like what?
exactly, you know, like that just doesn't make sense to me.
Nah, for sure. Even expanding on what you're saying, Mark, that's why I know for me, right? Like I live in Kennesaw, which is in Cobb County. I've said it like the past 3-4 shows, which is endorsed by racism. Okay, like it's thick out here.
Ooh,
But as
I don't know. Carrollton might got something to say about that one, buddy.
I live in Cumming, Georgia.
I know y'all cops be out there wilding in Carrollton for sure. But when it comes
hey, look,
the county here, it's not just the police, like it's just people, like it's citizens, like you know what I mean? We got wildlings here. But like you know, I've been happy to see like a lot of white people stepping up and trying to be allies and like listening to like what proper allyship and anti-racist behavior is and trying to break down all those layers and like their own biases that they may have that like they don't even realize and all of that. And that's important. I've been at 2 protests and I'm seeing all these white people at these protests, and that's important. But you're right to the degree of the fact that this is not something that we can do alone as Black people. This isn't even something we can do alone as oppressed people. If only the oppressed like are the people fighting for the change, there's only one way that can happen, and it's how they did it in Haiti. It's war. That's the only way. There's no way for the oppressed people to come together on an institutional level and legislative level and be the only ones fighting for something and get the change. We, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but what we do need is white people to realize that this is their issue too. Racism is their issue and their problem, and white supremacy is their issue and their problem. It is not just an issue and problem for us as Black people and oppressed people. And you're right, we have, bless you, we have scourges and millions of people who are either going to A, not acknowledge, or B, acknowledge, but they acknowledge because they're on the side of the oppressor. And that makes it continually frustrating because it feels like we're putting in all of this effort and we're climbing up this mountain, and like it's like the mountain keeps growing as we're climbing it. You know what I mean? They keep moving the goalposts.
I feel like they're really treating us how they treated Jesus. Like, to be honest. But the thing, it was way different. But the thing that really frustrates me is that we see your question, Ms. Doris. We'll get to it. The thing that frustrates me is that people will try to bring up the rioting and the looting just to negate the fact that a Black man lost his life for everybody to see. Like, they didn't have to burn down the Target. Well, they didn't have to kill the man. Like,
right?
What?
That's the whole point.
Who cares about that Target? They got insurance. They can build another Target.
Got billions of dollars.
Your daughter cannot build another dad. Like, that's just.
And the worst, really, the real worst part about it is they get it.
They do.
They do get it, but it's still somehow just
going over their head.
Over here, like
they can't resonate with how we feel every day
at all.
Right, most definitely. But like, there's even like I see things. I'll see a picture of somebody on Facebook or whatever talking to somebody, and they're like, you know, kind of playing with them, asking them questions, and their responses are literally what Black people are saying, but it's just like, how do you still miss the point? Like, how do you still miss the fact that there's an injustice done? And you know, that's the issue. The fact that, and also just how I think E said it earlier. In many fields, they're taught to see us differently. When we protest, the National Guard comes. When they protest with guns
at a state capitol that the governor was in,
of the building,
they
trapped.
They're not met with any type of force. Not the same type of force that we're met.
No
with.
Force. There was no force
at all. They just
all smiles and
whatever it is, and it won't change until they stop teaching their kids what they're teaching them. At the end of the day, because the kids, this was growing. The kids from 40 years ago had the parents that lived through Jim Crow types. So you know it's only natural that we're in that fine stage of, okay, all right, stop playing, like chill, like, yo, let us live. Like that's literally it. Just let us live. You know, we're 400 years removed, and we're still being treated the exact same way in a different manner.
Like, who would think that like our lives mattering would have so much pushback? Like, matter is like the very
bare minimum,
the minimum thing that you can get to.
What is lower than that?
Nothing. And you're upset with it. Like,
it's like Michael Shea said, the only thing lower is exist.
right.
So people are real.
Like, well, I don't know. Indian lives, I don't know. Something like semantics. How is that a stance? How can you take the like you just a bad person? You don't feel like I should have the same as you. You're just a bad person. That makes no sense.
Like, we're not saying all lives don't matter. Apparently, we really get all lives matter. But for you to say that you're ultimately saying that Black lives matter, which is really ignorant on your part.
Could you imagine somebody talking
blue lives matter? Don't nobody care.
a heart attack and he says all lives, all organs matter? Like,
Exactly. Make that make sense.
That's how.
So I saw it was a funny tweet. It was somebody with a Make America Great Again hat, and it said all lives matter. Somebody said, "What about the immigrants?"
Oh.
So Miss Doris asked the question. She said, as a young African American male, how would you handle after complying with an officer's commands only to realize your life is flashing before your eyes for no reason? I'm gonna start out. I know my dad always told me, he said that you really don't know what you would do in a situation until you're in it.
That's true.
So I don't really know how to answer this one, because if I feel like this is what Black people face. Like we're complying with the police, we're doing what they're telling us to do, but ultimately they still end up fearing for their lives, and we end up losing ours. I really don't know how to answer that and tell you what I would do, because I honestly don't know.
Let me ask you a question, or to piggyback on that. Is complying with the police, calling them out their name, and you know you have certain rights, but to keep repeating when you see that they're already agitated, isn't it better just to be quiet, not say anything, even though you're well within your rights?
I'm not antagonizing anybody.
But you cannot say anything and still get killed.
Anytime you make a cop upset, he has the power to send you to jail.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this. I'm someone who, and I'll take a stab at both those questions. Because I have been in a situation, and I was really young, in a situation where I feared for my life with police, and I wasn't even really aware. Like I was fearing for like going to jail for something I didn't do on Central Park 5 kind of thing. But like even in that is a fear for my life. But I also on a very carnal level had a fear for my life in immediacy that I didn't realize till years later. And so I can speak to like being in that exact situation. But kind of addressing my mom's question first, like when it comes to complying, I'm a firm believer that you should comply with the police. And I also, like when I'm in the car with my homies, unless like I let the driver do the talking, but when it comes to the rest of my homies, like I'm the homie that keeps us in check so that we can get back safe. All of my homies know that if we get pulled over in the whip, Emmanuel like does as much talking as he can outside of the talking that's directly to the driver, because Emmanuel is going to be the best one with the police, because the rest of my homies are just far too high. And so like I understand that, like that point of view of like comply first. But I am so tired of being told to comply with the police, because one, it doesn't matter, I can still be killed. And two, when in the world has complying with the police not complying with the police meant that you should be deserved with death? Like people like really say like there will be a video, right, of someone dying, being killed by the police unarmed, and they'll be like, well, they weren't complying. And that means they should die? There are people who have done crime who don't get killed by the government that has technically the right to execute them. But he deserves to die because he didn't comply. That doesn't make sense. And I understand that we as Black people have to arm ourselves with the knowledge that we must comply. I'm tired as a Black man of being told to, because it's just so draining here. Even though I agree with it. With that being said, to Ms. Doris's question really quickly, when I was younger, like very young, I was walking in New York, and this is why I will always say, when it comes to police all over, whatever, but I don't think there's a single good cop or anything just of the like in New York. If you are part of the NYPD, you are part of one of the most corrupt organizations to ever exist in my eyes. But this is past just my personal experience. But I was walking, I'm like 11. I think I'm like 11. I'm walking. I'm in Queens. I am walking by myself to the train station. Cops pull up beside me. They basically like start asking me questions. They're like, where are you coming from? Yada, yada, yada. This, that, and the third. What's in your backpack? All of these questions. Then they're like, one of them like gets out, the one that's closest to me, gets out of the passenger seat side and comes to me. And he starts like asking me like about things I was doing on a particular day. I'm in like 6th, 7th grade. I don't know. Like school, maybe. I don't know. So he's asking me questions. Eventually they tell me that I fit a description and I'm gonna have to come down to the precinct. And they're like, the precinct's not far, you have to come, and if you come like nicely, we won't put you in handcuffs, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't want to be put in handcuffs because in my brain, handcuffs are synonymous with arrest. So I just get in the back of their car and we drive maybe 4 or 5 blocks to their precinct, and then I'm in the precinct and they don't even get into a room. They have me like in the hallway and are butchering and badgering me with questions, and this, that, and the third. And come to find out, right, like at some point, I'm just like, am I under arrest? And I literally asked them, am I under arrest? And they were like, no. And I was like, I believe if I'm not under arrest, then I have the right to leave. And they're like, under technical law, yes, you have that right. And then I asked them, could I leave? And they were like, yes, but if we like need you again, we will come and find you. I'm like, okay, and I leave. Right, come to find out the description, right? Now, mind you, I'm 11. The description, like the nigga had dreads and was dumb tall, and it was nothing that could look like me whatsoever. The point I'm making is this. In this situation, I was filled with fear from the moment the cops pulled up beside me. And I did everything in my power to answer them. I'm like 11. I have very little bass in my voice. I had like a lot for a human, not a lot for a human, you know. I'm like being super nice and super respectful and super compliant. And yet, it did nothing to shake the fear and the trauma that I was going through in the moment. And as I got older and looked back at the experience, every time I think about it, I'm like, that was like so terrible. Like, how in the world could that happen? Because in my eyes, that's just simply the police going out of their way to try and ruin a young Black man's life. And like, that's all that will ever be to me. Like, this is an opportunity for us to destroy this young Black man. And to answer the question like in a very direct manner, there's really nothing you can do in that moment besides call on what you know. For me, that was God. I literally, while I was in the back of the car, prayed like, please don't let me go to jail because I didn't do anything. I started thinking about every time I ever did anything unsavory. And I was like, okay, maybe if I tell them about everything I've ever like took from a target, like they'll let me go. Like I was scared to death. Okay, but the fact of the matter is there's nothing you can do to shake that feeling in the moment, except for, like I said, call on what you know and just hope for the best. And too often we see that that's not enough.
Save me, Lord. Jesus.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, for me, this hits a little differently for me because as I grew up with like Buck and Christians, I can tell you like I've been a bigger dude like pretty much my whole life. Like 5th grade, I was like 5'11", so I've been pretty much a bigger dude, and like I have like two. Like I look at like Michael Brown, like Mike Brown to me is like me, like I've always been that size. But if you know me, I'm not like a very violent or very angry person. I'm a real cool laid back dude. But just if you don't know me and you just look at me in the street, you're not thinking that. And so, like, to answer the question, it's just like, well, what do you do? It's just like, well, Mike Brown had his hands up walking back and got shot in his back. So what more do you want us to do? And it's like, for me, kind of like Emmanuel, when I had like 2 stories. When I was like 12, I want to say, that's when your mom would tell you, you need to be home before the street lights. And so I'm running on the main road, with my book bag on, trying to make it home before I get in trouble. And a cop, sees me and they flash their lights. And I'm just thinking like, okay, well, maybe it's not for me. And then like I hear over the speaker, like, please stop running. And so they just said, there's been some robberies over the past couple of days. You look like you quote unquote fit the description.
Yeah, you always look like it.
And so it was just like, as a 12-year-old, I don't really know everything, you know, on my rights and stuff like that. So I'm not thinking, okay, cool, you want to check my bag? Go ahead. And so like they checked my bag and said, okay, you can go home. But like it didn't really process me. So I got home and told my mom and just figured like how outraged she was about the situation. And then fast forward to about my sophomore year of college, I was going to a different college for homecoming. And long story short, me and my friends got pulled over. And when they asked me to step out the car, like I had my hands up the entire time. And they kept telling me like, you can take your hands down, but it's just like in my mind, I'm not going to give you, I don't want you to think I'm going in my pockets. I don't want you to think like nothing. It's just like, I'm going to keep them up. And I agree with you saying like, you know, my parents have always engraved in my head, like it's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, to any adult. So I do believe you got to treat them with some respect. And because I just understand the moment I start becoming disrespectful to you is when you already gonna see somebody that's 6'1", 250 and be like, oh yeah, I knew you was physical. I knew you were disrespectful. You're a thug. Let's get him on the ground. And now what could have been a small situation has now turned into me being a trend on Twitter because I was being disrespectful. I'm not saying that they have a right to be that they have a right to do that because I have the right to say what I want to say, but understanding for me, my life is what I value the most. And so it's like me calling you, yes, sir, is going to get me back home to my family. Then that's what I want to do to get back home to my family. It's not about, I believe sometimes as a black man, we got to put our pride aside and just swallow it. So you know what? Yeah, this man's called me everything under the sun, but I'm going to still say yes, sir, no, sir, so I can get back home and live to see another day. And so, but it's frustrating to feel like as a black man to know I could do everything right and still die. So it's one of the things where it's just like, it's you damned if you do, damned if you don't. If I be respectful and comply, I can still die. If I go the opposite way, I can still die. So it's like, which is the best way? And it's like Emmanuel said, it's about what you believe in, and you just talk to God and just ask God to get you back home.
Whew, my Lord. Jesus have mercy. This has been, wow, my God. We have one other area we want to touch on before we leave. And I know we got to wrap up, but we want to touch on progress. Some of the progress that you guys have seen happen. I know we touched on a little bit, but we have a couple of things that we want to show. Just to show a little bit of the progress that has happened since the whole George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor riots and protests and things have been taking place. Let's look at this. Look at that banner. Man. So that was a slave trader statue coming down in, I believe, in London. And those are some of the things that's been happening all over the place. Confederate flags, Confederate statues that represent racism and, you know, things of that nature, not only are being taken down legally, but protesters are pulling them down as well. So people are really making their voice heard. It's being heard in even Emmanuel. I even heard the mayor of Kennesaw talking earlier on the news about some changes that they're going to be making out there. And the Black Lives Matter, those were some pictures that are all over social media where the president lives on what, Black Lives Matter now?
That is the stupidest, most insignificant thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't care about a street name. I don't care about you painting the ground. That does nothing for me. This is just for you to go outside, get a good little photo op. The media can say you did something or you did your job. So you can look good. What does that do for Black people?
Nothing.
The Black people that's out there painting it, they did it in Charlotte, they did it in DC, they did defund the police, I believe in Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken.
They painted a rainbow down in Atlanta, and they still can't even get married in this state.
I'm like, what is that? What is that?
These are people's expression of progress, of them showing. But there's one other thing that I wanted to show. When we talking about all of this progress, is it real? Check this out. So the NYPD lieutenant apologizes for kneeling alongside George Floyd protesters. A Manhattan NYPD lieutenant sent an email to his fellow officers apologizing for kneeling alongside George Floyd protesters late last month, telling them that the cop in me wants to kick my own ass.
It's a cult. That's all I have to say. It's a whole cult, because there is no reason that you did an action at the time that you felt like it was the right thing to do, because it is the right thing to do. And now you're going to side with your whole cop brotherhood, family, whatever, over people who are losing their lives. They're being taken away from their own families, but you're valuing your job, or you probably don't even make that much money in the first place, over a whole movement that needs to happen. You're going to apologize for kneeling, so why did you do it in the first place? And I've been seeing all these stories of people posting the police kneeling or hugging the protesters, and then people are commenting, yeah, they did that, but literally 10 minutes later, they sprayed us all with tear gas. It's to look good in the media. That is all it's for. They do not really feel like they want to side with the common people. But when they take off their badge, and they take off their uniform, they're a common person just like everybody else. But they're valuing being a cop over people losing their lives. I don't think it makes sense. It's stupid. They don't care.
I don't even agree with people kneeling as a protest. That's how the man lost his life, from being knelt on for 8+ minutes. So why are we kneeling?
Yeah, we got some comments. Yvette said right. Doris said amen. Yvette said this needs a part 2. And Naquana Thomas, she said agreed. Brenda is like, wow, I guess at what we just showed. And Yvette Clayton said they are not serious. I do believe we need to do This Is America Part 2. I do believe we need to do that. We will convene with the team in the back. We're gonna give you guys one final word around and give your handles of where people can find you. We gotta kind of bring this to an end, as much as we don't want to. We have to bring this to an end tonight, and just be able to we want to thank everybody. Somebody said the lieutenant is being fake about it. Like, come on now. That's what Yvette Clayton said. Yeah, and that's what Ashton and everybody's agreeing with you. It's like for publicity, for media, but his real thoughts came out in that thing that he sent to his people. You know, and again, that may not be all, but it's a symbolism of, you know, what we're doing. Is it really progress, or are we being appeased, or, you know, are we being placated? So we also have to be careful about burnout. We're going to talk about that in our next segment. Same even posted some good information about burnout, you know, because this is a long haul. This is not anything that's going to happen overnight. You know, we have to be, you know, people have to be ready. Are they ready for the long haul? Are they ready to, you know, be able to keep the fight going. You know, Hugh Harper came on. He said, "Peace and love, you guys." We're gonna give the team a chance to.
We gotta invite Q back.
Q, you heard that? They want you back.
He got to be on This Is America Part 2. I know he got some gems for us. I know he do.
All right, Q Harper. This Is America Part 2. Check your schedule for 2 weeks. So we want to thank all of our guests, man. The guests were on point tonight. We got some good feedback. Sean Jackson's like, those acts of progress looks nice, but until the U.S. starts putting money into our Black economy, is nice gestures.
Mm-hmm.
We need some real Negro reparations.
Gesture.
So we run up in their bank.
Reparations.
Reparations.
So let's let Mark give his closing remarks and his handle so people can get in touch with him. Thank you, Mark, so much for being with us tonight, man. We enjoyed you. And then the team, y'all do what y'all do so we can bring this to an end. Thanks again for all of our guests. Please continue to share this. It's on YouTube, on our From Pain to Purpose page, and it's on Facebook and our Healing Pain Through the Arts group. Please share, even after tonight. Keep sharing this message so we can bring more people into the conversation on part 2 in 2 weeks from tonight. Let it go, Mark.
So to answer the question, as if progress is being made, I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence with it. I believe, in a sense, there is. You know, when you look at Ahmaud Arbery, they all 3 of them have been charged, and same with George Floyd, and the one that actually, was kneeling on him got his degree got up, to murder 2 instead of murder 3. But I still feel like, Breonna Taylor, was shot 8 times in her bed sleeping, and there's not been no arrests, no charges have been made. So it's just like, we can't let that, stay silent. We can't let her, stay silent. We got to continue to say her name until justice has been done in Louisville. And I know Ashton and I think Emmanuel kind of spoke on this earlier too. Like, I appreciate, these corporations speaking out, but where's it coming from? Like, NASCAR just said, they banned the Confederate flag and things like that. But what are your real intentions about it? It's just like, why are you really coming at this? And saying, for me, I think like the NFL was like the commissioner was a joke, coming out saying we're sorry and we hear you, because Colin Kaepernick has still been unemployed for 6+ years, I think, or something like that. And I've been watching trash quarterbacks take snaps every Sunday. And so it's just like, what's the real agenda? Why are you apologizing when this black man said, I'm taking a knee? He was blackballed and silently kicked out the league for it. So that's just the frustrating part. So it's like I see progress, but kind of like you said, it's like it has to be a long haul. Ashton touched on it earlier, like the Montgomery boycotts were for a year plus. This can't just be a trend. This can't just be all for 2 weeks. We protest, we riot, we loot, and then we go back to living our lives and let me know what happens with the case, if they get convicted or not. To me, progress is going to be made once they get convicted and they actually do some real time. I don't want to see them get 2 years and then after they do a year and then after that they're back on the street because they got out for quote unquote good behavior. Like, no, like they have to really, for progress to be made, you got to send a stance as a, judicial system that enough is enough and we're not going to let cops keep doing this. So that's my stance on it. I see some, but it's not enough. I'm not satisfied with the little progress we've made. I think no black person should be satisfied with the progress that's being made right now. You can follow me on Instagram at Mark Motivates, and you can follow me on Twitter at CoachMark_1. I appreciate you guys for having me on today. This was a very good topic of discussion. I'm always willing to come back. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
That's what's up. That's what's
we
up.
Just
Thank
might
you,
bring
Mark.
it. We just might. we just might.
Let's go, team. Give your information.
Okay, I just have one thing. For anyone watching, I strongly suggest that you attend at least one protest, because just from my personal experience, you can feel the energy when you're there, and you feel connected to everyone. I met a lot of really great people. It's so much like camaraderie. You're all fighting towards a common goal, and I really suggest that you guys go and see what's really happening, especially because we're so close to it right now. But You can follow me on Instagram at Ashton Gates with 2 S's, and you can follow me on Twitter at Ash Gates the News.
Yeah. Progress is being made, but this is the beginning. So we see in progress, but for everything that we want and everything that we need and everything we deserve, like everybody said, it's gonna be a long haul. It's gonna be tough, it's gonna be difficult, it's gonna take sacrifice. But I mean, I feel like we're really at a point right now where, if the revolution is gonna be at a time, it's gonna be now. Because if we allow this to be a trend, or we allow this to die down and die out, it's just gonna come to another situation where that perfect storm, cooks up again, and then we're gonna be back here and we're gonna be wishing that we did it in 2020 instead of 24 or 28 or 32 or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I've been to protests, and I agree with Ashton. If you haven't been to one and you have the time and the ability and physically can, I'd get out to one, because like she said, there's an energy and there's a spirit that's unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. It's and genuinely, I think it's indescribable unless you be there. And we just want to keep fighting for what's right. You know what I mean? They said the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be live. So let's be live. You guys know where you can find me. You can find me on Instagram at The Even Saint and at Lion_Emmanuel_. Find me on Twitter at RIP Lions. You can find me on Facebook at Saint Even. You can find all of my music on all of the streaming places. Just look up Saint Even. And forget anything? I have a YouTube. Look up Saint Even or The Even Saint or something like that. And yeah.
That's cute.
Oh, it said Facebook user, so I didn't see. But
Q Hopper.
Yeah, where you can find me, the same places, Instagram _CB0. We say this every week, and don't nobody follow me. I'm just really
keep saying it. Keep saying it.
Like,
gotta manifest
follow
it.
me on Instagram.
Keep saying it. You only need one right person. Sean King might follow you. Keep saying it.
That's it.
Right, Ashton?
Instagram at huh? What?
No, just go ahead. I said keep saying it.
On Instagram at _CB03 and on Twitter at Coach_Buck03. Facebook is my first and last name, Christian Buckmeyer. I don't get on Facebook, so Instagram and Twitter is where you can find me.
All my socials are _skip to my shoe, as I say every week. Same as.
Ain't your Twitter look up from the south?
No. How you just know?
I was just asking. Go ahead, sorry.
That right there, you see that? That's it. Everywhere.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Y'all are funny. Y'all know that? Y'all are real funny. Follow the You Speak Out podcast at YSO Podcast on IG, Instagram, and on Twitter, YSO_podcast. Please follow us. Please connect with us to be a guest on our podcast. You can reach out to us on email, youspeakoutpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow me, CEO, host, visionary, all that good stuff. And you can also follow our From Pain to Purpose page on Instagram, Facebook, and our channel on YouTube, which is From Pain to Purpose Incorporated, INC. And also follow me, Amber Ann Lyons, on Facebook, and Nzinga L, NZINGHAL, L is for Lions, on Instagram. So we're going to call it a wrap tonight. We are so excited about what took place tonight. We know that the passion was felt by everybody. We want to thank, we did a little bit of feedback at the end of our show, but we want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. To continue to pray. We pray and we cover you all. We're praying for the families of those who lost loved ones, George Floyd's family, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. We're praying for everyone who has lost family members, and we're praying for you guys that God will keep you safe. Those that have tuned in, that you will stay safe at the protests, at work, in the midst of COVID-19, everything that is going on. Be back for part 2. We will be back in 2 weeks with part 2 of This Is America, and we appreciate you guys. Peace, and until next time, we out.
FYP Production.
She fell in love with the bad guy, but she loves my intentions. And nothing feels better than the moment we're sinning. No, nothing feels better than the moment we're kissing. I'll say I'll love her for forever, in the morning forget her. She was raised under money, growing up she couldn't see the poor. Save my number in her phone under me or more. Look me in my eyes and ask what I need her for. So in this game of life, she just might keep a score. And darkness is clouding my judgment. Marijuana clouds, cause the loud is so pungent. But me, I haven't touched a drug since that tray of white. I live my life before the fight like I'm Dana White. The block is hot like that boy band with Nick Lachey. Hold my heart in your hands like a Fabergé. Precious. We was young, dumb, and reckless, living like the devil couldn't catch us.